Welcome back, everybody. Once again, you're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Happy Friday. We're here with Kristin Wallace, who started Maker Park Radio, Staten Island's first and still only internet radio broadcast, because it is still 1952 there. You guys do doo-wop?
We actually do have a show that does doo-wop.
So many interesting
Jackie
shows.
Hollywood
Yeah.
doo-wop show. It's awesome. He plays really old scratchy records and you can't hear very well, but he's like really enthusiastic about the good old days.
That's great.
He's got his like
is it appropriate
pro-Trump things he does and says, and we don't care. It's okay because
Staten Island.
It's Switzerland where our radio station is, so we're okay.
Nice.
But it's cool. It's so rewarding, and I don't want to complain about it too much, but it's a nonprofit, so there's a lot of grant writing involved and a lot of like.
So how'd you get it off the ground? Like that, this is the part I'm curious about, because this is something I thought about as a kid listening to Casey Kasem. How does he do it? And then I didn't think about it at all because like radio kind of died, you know? And then last summer when Sam's like, hey, I was on a show and he's like, hey, do you want to host a show? And I was like, how does all this work? What happens? Like, I just talk in the microphone and it.
When I was a kid in Trenton, my sister went to Trenton State College, which is now Trenton University, and they had a radio station there. They still do, WTSR. And I stole my sister's college ID and I got an FCC license and I went and applied to become a radio station.
And that's how you do it, kids.
And so strangely enough, I mean, it was the coolest radio station because it was before there was program directors and anything. You had the whole place to yourself. Like we would go to 7-Eleven, we'd put a record on, go to 7-Eleven, get some Slurpees and come back. Like it was like no structure. But it was the beginning for me, for my love of radio. And then I felt like, okay, I need to do something. What do I want to do? And I read a review. I read an article on the Lot Radio, which is in Brooklyn, that is outside in a shipping container. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. But they're like a coffee shop that's also a radio station, and they do really cool stuff.
It's like Roberta's does the same thing. It's like a restaurant.
They're friends of mine and stuff. They're awesome, some of them. And I mean, some of them are friends of mine, not some of them are awesome. But basically, so I was like, we have to do this here. We have to do this, because I felt like I wanted to do something to sort of connect the arts community, because it was all little pockets. There's it's venue poor over there. Everybody plays in like tiny little bars and stuff. There's not a real venue for anybody else to play other than Mother Pug Saloon, which is like a punk rock bar, which is awesome, but it's still very small. So I'm like, what do I know? I know radio. Let's just start radio. So I was DJing this wedding upstate New York, and the Scott and DB, who own Makerspace. Do you know what a Makerspace is?
No, I mean, I've read about it a little bit, but I'm not very clear. Why don't you tell
so
everybody?
So it's like a STEM-related small business incubator. So they have tools, like giant routers and giant, like enormous tools that $50,000, $100,000 tools that you could never afford to own yourself. So if you're someone with an idea to make something, you can become a member of a Makerspace and pay like a member fee, but then you take classes and you learn how to use these tools to be able to make your idea. So there's also areas where people rent studios to work on their particular like thing. So there's a guy that fixes typewriters that's there. There's a person that does metal welding that's there. There's a photographer. Painters have studios. This woman was there who had to make 100 headdresses for her Indian tribe before the chief would bless her. So she was in there making that. There's a guy that was making drones for a while that's there. So there's like a wood shop and a metal shop. They also run Makerspace in Brooklyn. Both can be found on makerspace.nyc.
Where's the one in
That's
Brooklyn?
In the Army, wherever that is, like in Sunset Park, along the water, those gigantic buildings.
Industry
Army
City.
Terminal. No, south of there.
Okay.
The bigger, long ones on the water.
Gotcha.
So they're there. And they are a huge, gigantic facility that you can take classes in woodworking and wood shop and welding. And they have it's called Women Welding and Wine. the wine comes after you weld.
I was gonna say that sounds dangerous.
Yeah, that's awesome. But
somebody's losing a finger.
Yeah. So it's really cool, active space, very, brings in all kinds of different people.
Yeah.
So at the Staten Island location, there was a lot of land across the street, this big triangle shaped lot of land, and it was always dumped on. There was like 15 burnout cars. There was people living there. It was really fucked up. People would just dump stuff all the time. And so Makerspace would clear it and it would get dumped on again. And they finally took a lease out with the city and they got some sidewalks and they got shipping containers that were plopped in there. And it's now a sculpture park. And we do tons of events there and stuff.
Awesome.
So
but I think I saw pictures from something.
Yeah, we do like a block
summer
party there.
Yeah.
And so like a little mini music festival we do there. And so I was at this wedding and they said, oh, do you want to work, your music studio at the Makerspace? And I was like, well, I make techno music and you guys make a lot of noise and I'm not so sure, I'm loud, you're loud. I'm not so sure those things would go well together. But I do have an idea for your shipping container. And so I fought with the city for a while, like 6 months maybe.
You're a Wallace.
And because it's, thank you, because it's 1990 there. They're like, we can't do that. That's, I can't do that. You need a bathroom and an egress and a mezza and you can't possibly do that. And I was like, here are 10 places it's done. It's done in East New York at this, a series of art galleries. Smorgasburg does it down in Coney Island. On the high rise, there's other restaurants that are in shipping containers. At the time, I don't think anymore. There was at South Street Seaport while they were like repairing from Hurricane Sandy. There was tons of shipping containers. I mean, they're used all over the world. They have electric to shipping containers, but in Staten Island, beyond the scope of imagination, how you could possibly do that. And one day we were sitting outside a Makerspace and I'm like, can we do it in your closet that you have right there? And they said, okay. And that was the cool thing about Scott and DB that own Makerspaces, and that they're like, if you have a crazy idea, they're like, all right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So we built it out. Tom built it out. And we hosted a meeting that said, does anybody want to be a DJ? And like 40 people came. And most of them became DJs, except for like one guy who moved away. And it just built and it built. And a lot of times people who are guests end up becoming DJs. That's for sure.
Do some do it remotely, or everybody coming to the studio?
No, at the moment, we're having Q from Impractical Jokers is going to start doing a show every other week. And so that's going to be remotely sometimes.
Right.
Because his schedule is crazy. We have Vince Clark from Erasure. That was my shoe. Vince Clark from Erasure does a show called The Synthesizer Show. Reed Hayes. And Reed Hayes is in Reed and Caroline, the band. I don't know if you know Caroline. She's from the neighborhood.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh, I might. Yeah, maybe.
But
sounds familiar.
Yeah, she had twins. So anyway, she's so their show is The Synthesizer Show, and so they didn't want to miss an episode, and so when Vince went on the Erasure tour, he did his show from backstage on the Erasure tour, nice. Which was really cool.
That's dope.
And we stream live events. We partner with Summer Stage, and we stream the Summer Stage here. They're like, do you want to do all the summer stages? And I was like, no, I don't, but thank you. I'd love to, but I don't have the capacity to do that. So we do live streaming of stuff, and people ask us to stream stuff live a lot. And sometimes I'm like, no, because that's boring. That's going to be boring. Your event is going to be boring if it's streamed live. They're like, we're the Philharmonic or whatever. Do you want to? Right. And I'm like, if people wanted to go see it, they would go see it. No one wants to sit on their, and watch it on TV. I'm like, but if you want to bring in your oboe player and we can talk about why did you choose this ridiculous instrument? Like, how long did it take you to learn it? Like
bassoon. Bassoon's a good way. Yeah.
So like that would be more engaging. Yeah. And someone would be like, oh, see a flyer, instead of saying like, oh, okay, here's the Philharmonic. It's not my thing. I'm just not going to go. They could see a flyer and be like, oh, I heard an interview with this guy who plays this ridiculous instrument in this band, in this thing. I'm going to go check it out. So it's a way to connect people. Yeah. It really is.
And do you still need a FCC license and all that for internet broadcast? Right. You can just
no,
do it, right? Just
no.
suck it
I
up.
had to. We really started like way before we should have. Like we were like, let's do this thing, and I woke up every day for like a good 3.5 months in the middle of the night, going like, shit, like really totally terrified.
Yep.
And I just kept going and going because I had these people around me were like, I'm really excited you're doing this thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, about that. I think that
yeah, so
totally did I say I was gonna do that? But no, we just did. We just did. We had an opening day and it was like a super steep learning curve. We totally screwed up at first. We were streaming to YouTube. We got shut down. We rerouted the audio. It was off from the video. It was a nightmare. So we finally made some decisions, and over time we've gotten it to where we're a semi functional radio station.
No, I know that story.
But we've had like 500,000 viewers
that's amazing.
And in from a tiny closet on the North Shore of Staten Island.
Like go to the website and look, it's tiny.
Yeah, it's BakerParkRadio.nyc. If I can shout out myself.
2 people are in there. And
we've gotten like 5-piece band in that tiny room.
Seen
like
Dave Keener getting up in there.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take another short break. We'll be back in a few. Listen to Entrepreneurial Web.